After watching the Kamala and Brett Baier interview last night, I was reminded that all of us can watch the same thing, but have a different takeaway and a different interpretation of what we watched. Now, I watch everything I can on both sides because I want to make sure that I am making the best decision for what my beliefs align with. I watch the RNC, I watch the DNC, I watch any interview that I have the time for. What I saw was a woman that couldn't answer a question and was more concerned with bashing her opponent than actually telling the American people what she's going to do to improve things in her administration. What I'm seeing other people saw was that she was articulate and well-spoken and direct and assertive. Did we watch the same interview? What I think the American people needed to hear from her was her policies and what she's actually going to do differently than Biden. She did say at one point that her administration would not be the same as Biden's, but she didn't lay out any specifics as to how it's going to be different. Then I saw in an interview last week that she did with The View that she said she can't think of one thing in particular that she would do different. Now, I don't care how you vote. Quite frankly, that's none of my business. And as long as both sides can be respectful about it, I have no issues. But things like this make me wonder what people are truly voting for. Is this an emotionally led decision? Is this a party that they've always aligned with, so they feel like they have to vote that way? Can you truly listen to Kamala Harris speak and say, yes, that's what I want. That's what I want to see out of my president?
Nope, absolutely not. And I think that the most difficult thing for most people is to admit that the thing that they once believed is not the thing that's true today. It never was true. And none of us want to be bamboozled. And I think that that's more pronounced for people, Black people in particular, especially Black people that almost 100% aligns with the Democratic Party just because that's something that they've always done. I've struggled with it in my family, and I think that it also takes a very, very strong-minded person, as this woman indicated, to objectively look at all sides. I also watched the Republican National Convention first, and then the Democratic National Convention also. And it's almost like you can't unsee what you saw and you can't turn it off now because my eyes have been awakened. As a person that grew up in a family like most of us do, and if you look at the polls, it's very interesting because the most crazy thing is that even with Trump making inroads within the Black community and Black men in particular, the Democratic Party still controls like 80% of Black people, which means that they've never really had to ask for anything, or they've never ever been independent. They've always been one way, and they've been tied to the Democratic Party based off of the scraps that's been given to them. And so they've broken up your family, they've given you feminism, affirmative action, and then the alphabet community, and now we have this migrant crisis who's going to be tied to the Democratic Party based off of the idea that they've created a new voter base and voter class, and even their children will be endeared to it because they feel like they gave them a handout, and so they're willing to spend money to invest in their own power structure than they are on the American people, because similar to what Kamala Harris said, but on the reverse, they'd rather fix a problem that they've created instead of really being solutions-based and oriented. And so when I see people a lot of times voting, especially the Black community, and it's never more pronounced. That's why you hear so many politicians say the Black vote, the Black vote, the Hispanic vote, the Black vote. And the reason that they do that is they know that, listen, it must be some kind of really big awakening if people start to defer away from the thing that they've always normally done, because people are creatures of habit, especially as they get older. And as you get older, you become more of what you already are, and you tend to stay steadfast in that thing that you've been taught to believe. And so that's why you kind of got to reach people younger, because once people get older, it's much more difficult to convince them to go and do something differently. Even in my own family, it's not the older people that's ever going to change. They're always going to vote Democrat for the rest of their lives, no matter what, no matter how old they get, no matter how much they see what's happening, no matter how much they suffer, that's just what they're going to do because that's what they've always done. And their hearts are hardened towards that particular party. On the flip side, you can take the younger people, some of my nephews and my nieces, and they like, man, what is they talking about? And so the older people will then look at the younger people as rebellious when in reality, they're just thinking for themselves. And instead of us having an intelligent conversation about what we really see, we're shaming people based off of how they substantiate their argument. And what I seen during that interview, objectively, because before she ever went on the interview, and you can confirm it when I was on the Millionaire Morning Show, before she ever went on that interview, I said that it was going to be the worst thing for her. And if I was her campaign manager, I would have kept her off of that interview. Why? Because she's never been pressed like that before. And any little pressure with somebody sticking on a sticking point long enough, she completely unravels because there's no podium, there's no script in front of her, and she can't then defer to the fact that she was born in the middle class and all of that other same rhetoric that she has. She loves small business owners, even though she's never opened up a small business, let alone worked in the private sector as an adult. So when I see this happening and when I see this playing out, I realize that she was stuck between a rock and a hard place, and it's almost like her campaign managers and aides are setting her up to lose because I said it objectively. I said, listen, this is a zero-sum game. She is going to lose 10 times out of 10, and it's going to be exponentially worse if she gets on Fox News and they stick on a specific subject long enough to actually get her real thoughts. And she was absolutely airheaded, couldn't come up with a logical thought, especially when he brought up the fact that they've been in office for the last 3.5 years. How haven't things changed? And then she says, well, Trump has been campaigning for, and people act like they just completely missed that whole thing. They act like they didn't watch J.D. Vance just absolutely wash Tim Walz. And that Trump and J.D. Vance has been pulling up in op territory since the campaign has started. And Kamala Harris, 19 days left in the election, just so happened to pull up on Fox News. And I believe that they did it because she's losing. And they realize that she's losing. And they're looking to figure out any kind of way in order to get her in front of the most people so she can gain ground. It's the truth. It's just the absolute truth. So when this woman says, listen, I think we all watching a completely different thing. We watching the same thing, but we looking at it from two different lenses. There's one group of people who's looking to not upset the establishment that they have within themselves to continue to do the thing that they've been doing, even though their circumstances is different and changing every single day. People are resistant to change. And so they reject it even if it's in their best interest. And then you have a second group of people who eyes are open and they say, you know what? I don't really care if it's a black man or a white man or whoever it is, or an Indian man or whatever is running for president of the United States of America, because identity politics comes second. My emotions come second to what makes sense for my daughter and my family and the future of this country. And we are giving it away. We are giving it away. And again, for me, I'm already okay. I'm going to be fine regardless of who becomes president of the United States of America. I'm set. I'm good. As a 42-year-old man, I'm good. But my reasons for participating and really getting involved in this election is the future of this country, because A, I want to leave it in a better space had I not been here. And B, I want it to actually be something that's beneficial for my daughter. So the lens that I'm looking at it through is the one of who is the best for this country. And I also have a sample size over the last 7.5 years of what Trump did versus what Kamala Harris did. And you can't get me to hate a man that is not racist and has never done anything except for put money in my pocket. That's what I stand on. Obama can't convince me, Magic Johnson can't convince me, and Kamala Harris certainly hasn't convinced me. Let me know what y'all think. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off for life. And then last but not least, get your tickets to come and kick it with me in person. I'll be in Atlanta on November 2nd, Detroit on December 14th. Put discount code Anton in the description, and let's run it up. I love you. I appreciate you. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments.